Hey, good morning, everyone. Daniel Cook here with podcasts that we are known and love, home cooking. So if you're home and you are wondering what you need to do around your home, and this is the podcast that you should be listening to. So welcome, everybody. And we're today talking about a topic that we get asked a lot about. And some areas are wanting to know more about metal roofing and different ideas that they may want on their homes for longevity purposes or just because they like the look of it. And so we're going to be talking about some of those questions and showing some examples today. I have some pictures of a metal roof that we're actually under construction currently with. And, hopefully can answer some of these things that you may be asking yourself. So we got Lyndon with us today. Lyndon, are you here?
I am here. What's going on, everybody?
All right. So we have a house currently in Van Alstyne. It had about a 22-year-old roof on it, and it's a very nice property. He has, I want to say, about 45 acres. He has some livestock out there. He has a huge metal building already for his livestock and all his equipment and everything. Back on the back side of the property. And then he has a shed that's also metal. And he keeps a lot of his other smaller equipment on. So for his area around there, he already has large, beautiful metal buildings and everything like that. His home, like I said, probably a second roof or something like that. He has a large porch that goes around it. And the shingles were failing. They were too old to last up to the conditions. And so he called us up, and insurance was going to pay for a new roof because he needed one. And so he kept asking us, give me some other options. I want something that's better. And so we talked about class 4 shingles, and we talked about, the ways to rep the deck better and all those kind of things. And he said, you know what, I just really want a metal roof. I want a metal roof. I said, well, let me give you some costs and everything. We talked about that. And there are some cost differences. And that's the biggest thing that people need to underestimate probably. The cost of the product is one, but the labor to install a metal roof is substantially more. So in this case, this house we talk about squares, and that means 100 square feet is considered a roofing square. So this home is a little bit under 70 squares. So it's, almost 7,000 square feet on the roof. Mm-hmm. And when we're dealing with shingles, one of our crews can generally shingle that house in a day. So, you get in that morning at 6:30 and you start working and you finish that evening, between probably 6 and 7 o'clock. That's feasible. It's not a lot of pitch on this particular roof. And so the guys can work pretty effortlessly to complete that. So that's a one-day job in an asphalt shingle. This happens to be a 8-day job with a metal roof. That means a lot more labor, on the ground every day, and mounting the brackets and doing those different things. So labor is a big portion of an install on a metal roof, plus the materials. You get these huge coils of the metal that you have to then form, and you have to put through special machines and presses. And then you have to then, measure the lengths and cut all those individually and cut off the bars, smooth them out, and do all that. So the fabrication of the metal itself is a long process. So there's a lot of intricacies with the metal roof. I think we have a few other. Do you have some of those pictures, Lynn?
I do, yeah.
Let's see some of the prepping side. It looks like some of the material, maybe just the. Okay, so this is the eave right here over the front side of the porch. So what we've done, we've cleared off the deck. We've got all the old materials off, and we put what's called an ice and water or polyglass. You can see it written on here. Sometimes, depending on the pitch, you can only install a synthetic underlayment, but in this particular application, because the pitch narrows down so fast to a flat surface, so it goes from like a 512 down to like a flat. I decided to go ahead and put this polyglass or ice and water on the entire decking, which is an extremely expensive add-on. So one roll of this polyglass runs about $135. and you get 2 squares out. So it's something that, unfortunately has a price tag to it. But for longevity purposes, this was the better alternative to building this roof, so I don't have to worry about him getting leaks in the future.
Right.
So as anything, the better you prep it, the more you put into it, the better product you're going to have. So, but you can see this is going to be a transition from the actual roof line down to the porch. And you see this long piece of flashing right here going on along the edge. That's called a transition flashing. And when we put these next panels up here, the panels over the roof are going to go over that transition flashing, so the water runs over all the way over those seams, so it doesn't get behind there. So that's an important key element of how to run the panels properly.
Okay.
What else we got? Okay, all right, here you can see during the prepping. So we took off the entire roof all the way down to decking. We found a tremendous amount of rotted wood and decking that was, not going to hold up to the installation process. So then we had to, replace all that wood. I think all in all, we replaced almost, I want to say like 65 sheets of wood on this deck. So it was an entirely big amount of wood that we replaced. Here you can see completely rotted bottom. You can see, you couldn't see that when the shingles were on there because it was blocked by shingles. But once you took the shingles off, you could see how bad the wood was.
Wow.
It actually had light blowing through it. So you definitely had some water protrusion.
Whoops, wrong one. That's an old one. Let me see.
Okay, now you can see all the new wood underneath. So we literally had to redeck a lot of the porch because that was where majority. So you can kind of see on this picture right here. So the new wood is the porch, and the upper section that starts through the house right there by that skylight. So all of this had to be replaced all in that area because it has so much water problems that it was causing water was just diving in there. And the reason why is where that go again, like we talked about earlier, where you go flat to that transition right here, you got to have a good seal right there for that water not to get behind and underneath that wood. So now that we've got this whole home completely sealed with that ice and water shield, water's not able to penetrate to that wood any longer. So even worst case scenario, let's say one of the metal transitions fail, one of the brackets fail, something of water somehow starts to dip underneath that metal roof, it's still not going to be able to get down to the decking. That ice and water, that polyglass is going to be there. So that water's still going to run off the roof underneath that metal. So, but with the way that we install the metal roof, for a failure to occur, it's going to have to be induced by weather. Because the brackets that we're putting on here, these panels are a phenomenal panel, that stand up to a lot of conditions. And so,
how does that polyglass seal together? Is it does it seal, overlap, or
Yeah, you kind of have the same installation process. So if you go back to one of those installation photos, you'll kind of see where you can see some of here. So you'll start at the bottom, and you put your first row down, and then you go over that next row about 3 to 4 inches, and you go across the valley. You can see how those straight lines go across the valleys, and then you keep running up and down all the way through that whole slope of the roof. And then you overlay it so your top line is over. It's always going to be on top. You never run it below. So that way, if you just took a glass of water and you poured it from the top all the way down, that water would not have any kind of restrictions. It wouldn't have any kind of an overlaid line or anything like that. It would run all the way straight down off that roof. And then your valleys, right here along this backside, even though you're running that across and parallel that valley, you still want to run some in the middle of the valley as well.
Yeah.
And it's basically it's all an adhesive. It has an adhesive on the backside, and it's a thick membrane. So it's not just paper. It has like a base membrane built into this. And that way, once you apply that adhesive and put it into the decking, it's not coming off. You would literally have to take a scraper and scrape this off this wood to get this off.
That's what I was wondering. That's how I figured it probably worked, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. But here you can see how we got the whole thing prepped up, ready to go. Skylights, and then we'll redo all new flashings around the skylights, all that area. So
That's a big house.
This is a nice big house. It really is. It's a traditional ranch style home, and he just had some events over time that was killed the shingles. You can see that partially cut down tree right there.
Yeah.
That tree actually had some limbs that fell off onto the roof, and that's what actually started this insurance claim, and damaged it in that back corner. And then, of course, then the adjuster got up there and go, man, your roof, your overall roof has some problems. I think we need to take care of your roof. And so that's how that kind of transpired. But so all in all, this is going to be a project that, just give you some rough ballpark numbers. Shingles for roof right now, if you're doing a true R&R, removing and replacing everything, all new products, everything like that, doing it the right way, those run about $425 a square, right? That's labor and materials. Doing a metal roof and doing it right with a true standing seam, not an RPAP, but a standing seam roof, you're probably looking more at about $1,100 a square. So you can see, I mean, there's a pretty good amount of price difference.
Yeah.
The insurance companies recognize what you're putting on your home now, and so you do get the benefits of having a class 4 rating, because they know that to damage that roof with hail and weather events, it's going to have to be astronomically high to damage the roof like that.
That's what I was going to ask too. I mean, how does that metal compare to the highest rated asphalt shingle as far as holding up to hail damage? Is it long term? I mean, do you recoup that money long term, a little bit more investment now over time, and then especially with insurance maybe being a little bit more friendly?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this metal roof, honestly, that we're putting on this gentleman's home, I don't see him getting another roof on his house.
Okay.
So this will be a long-term investment that may have some maintenance to it, around some of the flashings, around some of the ceiling points, but based on the longevity of these products, they don't go bad. They don't disintegrate. They don't get problems. That an asphalt shingle roof will develop over time.
Yeah.
There's only so much life a shingle and asphalt and matting and the tar and everything can hold up to, especially in Texas.
Yeah. With the heat. One of the questions that you just made me think of. My brother has been in the metal building business for 25 years or so, and I had a good friend of mine that I referred to him, and my friend priced out a building with my brother, and no, it wasn't a building, it was a roof. So I want to get back. So it was a roof, it was a metal roof, and then he got another quote, and kind of like what happens probably with a lot of contractors, he got a better quote, he thought, with another company, and obviously that metal roof was not as thick. I don't know if it's called a gauge or what. I'm not going to speak, but my friend didn't know the difference. He just saw the price, and so isn't that something that people need to be aware of too? Because I mean, some of that stuff that's sold out there is kind of, I'm not going to say paper thin. Obviously, it's not, but it's not going to be as durable as maybe some of the other that like you're talking about a lifetime roof. That's going to be some pretty good gauge metal, right?
Yeah. So gauge is the terminology, and it starts all the way up to 26 gauge, which is not very dense. It's very low economical kind of. I think of those with that gauge roof. That's probably for like a storage shed, something in that magnitude. Not for a primary residence, not for a huge building that's going to have to withstand a lot of wind and resistance. So this particular is a 22 gauge that we're applying here on this home. And so the 22 gauge, and then also it's how you form it. It's called striations. Striations are what you do when you roll that metal through the machine. You can put striations, so you can put 2 or 3, and that makes that panel a lot more dense and stable. So it doesn't have the ability of flexing. And if we don't do that, what happens is once you mount them on the home, you'll see where the mounting brackets are, and you can see it's called oil canning. And so you get these oil can ripples as you look up the metal roof, and you can see where the brackets pull those panels down, strengthening that roof line. So if you don't use striations, you can see it big time, especially when you see those roofs that have just those looks like flat panels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, either extremely denser metal, like 18 gauge, something like that, oil canning to occur. So, it's there's so much things about a metal roof that people underestimate, and the gauge is one thing, but it's all about the prep thing. It's all about the mounting brackets. It's all about the secureness of the end caps and rolling over the end pieces along on the eaves and the rakes, making sure that everything is secure. Because there's a whole bunch of guys out there that do this occasionally. So if you're not building a metal roof, once a month, once every 5-6 weeks, and you forget a lot of these things, and you may not understand the reasons why. And so that's another big thing is, we get out there and we explain everything in detail. This is what you're going to get. This is why it has to be done this way. Um, we think that you need ice and water on your whole deck, not just underlayment. And that was an expensive endeavor. But we have to talk to the customer, make sure they understand why they need that. And it's considerable. I mean, that added $3,000 to this project by doing it, but it was the right thing to do.
Now, is that something that the insurance looks at also and goes, this is or is that just kind of you take that responsibility on yourself just to make sure you don't have to replace it again?
Yeah, in this particular situation, this gentleman probably was going to receive somewhere around $25,000 toward his roof. That's all insurance is going to give. That's it.
Yeah.
The difference between the metal and his old, he's going to secure that on himself.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it would have an impact on your premiums or anything like that moving forward, or how your insurance rated that roof.
Yeah, it will. I mean, from here on out, he's got a Class 4 roof, so his premium is going to go down. I think, on average, last time I checked, his insurance was offering 25% discounts.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you got a $4,000 dollar premium on your home, that's a pretty good amount of chunk of change that you're going to take off. They're going to take off $1,000 off your premiums.
Right.
And I think that's a good deal, especially in his situation.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that he wanted a better structure on his property. He was tired of dealing with leaks. He was tired of dealing with it. He knew the benefits of having metal. He already has it on his other properties, and it just made sense for him. So for him to invest that additional $1,000, it was something that he felt like was going to make money, and he didn't want to deal with this anymore. So perfect.
Yep. I don't blame him.
But not everyone is good for metal roofs, though. So these going over some of the negatives. We talked about oil canning. Also, you mentioned insurance. Okay, so but what insurance won't tell you a lot of times is, let's say you had a hailstorm that had golf balls, and you had golf ball size hail that for about 15 minutes on your property. Well, you come out the next morning, and what you see is on your hills, you see a bunch of dimples on your metal roof, because it will develop dimples.
Mm-hmm.
It will get to a point of having some I can't say holes, because they're not holes, but they are just dimples. That's a terminology I can think of. Some people don't like seeing that on their roofs, right? They wouldn't want to see a roof with a whole bunch of dimples all over it. The problem is that's considered in a lot of situations in insurance. That's called a cosmetic exclusion. So you may not be able to get your roof replaced with insurance if you have a metal roof and it's just cosmetically dimpled.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, insurance is not going to cover a metal roof for replacement unless it has penetrations. So fractures within the metal, fractures around the flashings, something that's going to cause that metal to be, subject to more damage, basically. So it's going to allow water to get inside the home. So it has to have penetration. It has to have some type of structural instability. So a lot of times, you go out there and they think that you're going to have coverage for it, but you don't because it's cosmetic.
Right.
Now, there are some policies out there that have a one-time cosmetic waiver that you can replace your roof one time in the history of your policy if you have a metal roof. So
Better make
when
it
do you
count.
replace it? When do you replace it?
You better make it count.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. So when do you replace it? Do you replace it the third year that you got it, that you had the hailstorm come through and you have dimples on it? Or do you take a chance and say, well, I'll wait this year and see if it gets worse next year? Or, what do? And then you have to take a chance of, well, when I do replace it, how much of my policy is going to be? What is my deductibles?
Right.
Do I switch insurance companies? And if you do that, well, now the next insurance company is taking the responsibility of your roof going forward, but nothing on the behind.
Mm-hmm.
And they may write it to where you have no exclusions. So there are policies out there that strictly eliminate metal roofs from replacement unless it got blown off.
So when we're talking, I assume it's going to be the same. Like if you had a small area damage with asphalt shingle, and those shingles were say 5-6 years old, and you're coming in and you guys are putting on, you can't just put that one area because it's obviously going to be discolored, right? Would that be the same with the metal roof? I mean, if there was like one panel that got, a tree limb that poked a hole in it, are you going to have to replace the whole roof because of discoloration, or how does that work?
So, again, to answer your question, as far as asphalt shingles, matching is not an endorsement that insurance looks at. So you have to get the best close or similar products to perform the repairs. So even on an asphalt shingle roof, if they say, yeah, we're going to give you this 75 square feet that you need to reshingle, we can only do the closest shingle that, and insurance is fine with that. They will not replace a whole roof due to that. On a metal section, metals, each one of those ribs on a metal overlays the section beside it. So if you have a penetration in the middle of this, you have to remove all of those panels up to the point to release the one that needs to be replaced for the penetration. When you remove all these panels back behind there, you take a risk of bending that metal and creating a problem with it, trying to reseal and reseam down in the same position that it was. So that's why in metal roofs, when you have a penetration in the middle, it's not just that one little small area. It's all the way up to the point that you have to gain access to get to that area.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the flashings and all the transition points between that too, because all those got to be replaced as well.
Yeah.
So that makes it a difference. We are right now in the middle. Another gentleman that we're working on his metal roof, he has a Mueller metal roof. It's about 27 years old. It has developed some really bad leaks at the chimney flashings and around some of the other transitions around the skylights. And unfortunately, it was a little bit of an install failure. They didn't run the channels long enough, and they didn't put the channels up the wall flashings tall enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's allowing water to get behind all that and then run below the chimney and go down to the decking. So it was a minor installation error. In this particular case, though, now we're going to have to go out to this home and remove his entire back slope of his metal roofing off of it to gain access to those channels and to get all that redone. So when we do that, we're going to have to replace that whole back section of his roof, back slope. So, in this particular situation, I mean, his metal's never going to match again because we're only doing what we have to do.
Right.
So, repairs on this is a lot more difficult. So if you do have a tree that falls, or if you do have some type of a freak storm that something gets thrown up, like a trampoline or debris from your farm, gets thrown up into your house, and penetrates the roof, those are insurable factors. And more than likely, you're probably going to definitely have to bring insurance in to repair. We're doing repairs on a metal roof because, in this particular case, let's say we have to take off, 40 feet of metal roofing and transitions to get to that could, that repair could be, $15,000-$20,000.
Yeah.
So definitely something you want to know and read about your insurance policy as far as how they look at metal roofing. So
what about, let's say that it is discolored, nothing you can do about it. You do like 30% of the roof has to be replaced. Can you paint it? Can you paint it and match color, or is that not advisable?
Not really. That the metal, the paint comes baked in, and
Yeah.
it's already pre-finished and everything like that. So
So it's
you're
just
trying
more-
to you're trying to blend that in. Now I've heard of situations where guys will get up there and they'll spray some of that Rust-Oleum, paint up on there, and it flakes off because it's not baked in there.
Right.
So it may last for a little bit, but you'll see blotches on your roof.
Yeah.
There's no way you're gonna match that.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So the other thing we get asked for a lot of times is where you're living. So a lot of HOAs are not going to authorize metal roofs.
That was going to be my next question. I didn't figure that was going to be something that they would allow. They wouldn't even allow that on storage buildings in a lot of areas.
They don't want that because they don't want the risk of it being cosmetically nasty over time. That was the whole process. They don't want these roofs up there that look all banged up. So they rather not have to deal with that.
Yeah.
They know that's an opportunity. It could happen. Generally, you see a lot of metal in construction and commercial projects. But the reason is that commercial projects are usually in a large commercial zone. You don't have people hanging around them, eye them out, looking at all the details of the metal. They usually are higher structures.
Mm-hmm.
Commercial structures are very high usually that have metal. And so it's not something that's seen. So you can't see all the imperfections in it, from a commercial standpoint.
Sure.
But if you're walking down a neighborhood and you got 4 or 5 of your neighbors have metal roofs and you see all these cosmetic flaws on these metal roofs every day. I mean, they don't want to, limit the value of the houses or limit the value of the homes, in the neighborhood due to this, So
Right.
it is what it
Value.
is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But metal roofs, I mean, for country settings, is a fantastic option. It's something that, you should definitely take advantage of. If it's something you want to lean into, just understand there's a substantial upfront cost that you're going to have to endure. But if you can, save yourself 2 or 3 or 4, asphalt shingle roofs over that same time span, it's going to pay for itself. It's just whether you want upfront cost or do you want delayed cost. And that's really what it boils down to. So the product, though, that are out, these coils, these paint, I mean, they all have fantastic warranties on the paint. Some of them are 25 years against any kind of fading, chipping, corrosion, anything like that. So if you don't have a freak weather event, these metal roofs look fantastic for many, many years.
Yeah.
So that's really the ballpark of the whole thing is, low maintenance and low overhead versus having to deal with casual asphalt shingle roofs.
Sure. All right, Daniel.
Yeah, that's about it, man. So maybe next show I'll issue some final pictures of this project. You can see some finals. It looks fantastic. So I think we're going to be finishing up today, actually. So
Okay.
I'll send you some, and you can show those on the next episode, and then we'll go over some other items, other roofing options on the next episode.
All right. Well, I'll let you close us out, and we'll get ready for the next one.
All right, sounds good. So, folks, if you have any questions on metal roofing, if you want a quote for your particular property to see if it's an item that you like to go down, we'd love to help you out. You can give me a call, 1-833-COOK-DFW, email daniel@cookdfw.com, and we'd love to answer your questions and see if you're a good candidate for standing seam and R-panel roof, and love to see if we can assist you. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Until then, though, we'll see you on the next episode. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.